quick announcement before we dive in. If you're loving this podcast and want to go deeper into play schemas, I've got exciting news. The Play Schemas Collective is now in beta testing, and I'm inviting you to join for free. This is your chance to test drive a brand new collective designed to help you confidently support your toddler's development through schema-based play, bringing more joy and less frustration into your everyday. Applications close June the 26th, 2025, so don't wait. Head to playschemas.com/beta, which is play, schemas.com/BETA to apply. And if you want to hear all the juicy details first, just listen to episode 28 where I give you the full overview. Okay, now let's get into today's episode. You look at the pictures, you describe the pictures, and especially if you've got those little board books that say car, next page, truck, next page, tractor, and you're like, this is just, what is this? That's when you're like, oh, look, there's a car. Oh, I can see a wheel. The wheel is black and it goes round and round and round. Oh, there's a cow driving the car. Hello and welcome to Demystifying Child's Play. I'm Ruth Vercoe, and today I'm very excited to have Alex with me on the podcast. She is a twin mum, which for me, anyone who has twins, I instantly take my hat off to. She came from being a parent as well as an experienced ECE teacher, and is also a parenting coach and holistic sleep coach, which aligns with her deep passion for supporting families in the early years. Her own experience with having twins led her to explore the world of infant and toddler sleep, attachment, and responsive parenting more deeply. Whether she's mentoring parents or coaching ECE kaiako, which are teachers, or presenting at professional events, Alex is deeply committed to nurturing our tamariki, our children, through attuned, respectful, and responsive care. She believes that what happens in the earliest years lays a foundation for lifelong well-being, and that parents and professionals alike deserve support as they navigate these precious and often challenging beginnings. Today, she comes to us with over 2 decades of experience and believes the same as me that play and freedom in the first 5 years are absolutely paramount. So welcome, Alex. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it because today what we're going to be diving into is literacy in preschool children. And I'll give you a little spoiler alert. Both of us agree that play is the absolute key, not worksheets, not sitting down with flashcards or these structured lessons. Now, I'm super passionate about literacy, and Alex is too. And as she has said in her Instagram pages, when the time is right, they can learn to read and write. In my own career, working with new entrant or kindergarten students, depending on where you come from, I've seen it over and over again, the children who are ready and those who aren't. And the commonality is definitely around those ones who've had natural exposure to literacy and literature, compared to those who've been made to learn. So today, I've asked Alex to share with us her 5 top tips on providing natural opportunities for literacy learning with our children through play in everyday life. So Alex, where would you start for your top 5?
Okay, so I think number 1, my top tip is to understand that literacy is more than reading and writing, and it develops over time. So I like to think of literacy development as like building a house. You wouldn't start building your house with the roof, right? Like that just can't happen. You begin with the foundation and then you slowly add the frames and the walls and the windows, and you build it one layer at a time, and one layer supports the next layer. And this is exactly the same when it comes to learning how to read and write. So reading is the roof. That's that final layer. But before we get there, children need a strong base built from everyday experiences like talking, listening, singing, playing with sounds, hearing stories. These early experiences form the foundation their brain needs to become confident, capable readers and writers down the track when they start primary school. Now, it's easy to fall into that trap of thinking the earlier my child learns to read, the better. But it's not that simple. The brain doesn't work that way, and the brain doesn't develop that way. The brain develops from the bottom up. And that it starts with learning about sensory processing, emotional regulation and connection. And gradually it builds towards that higher level functioning like language, reasoning, and problem solving. So expecting a young child to take on complex learning and tasks like reading before those early layers are built is just unrealistic. And it can actually lead to that child to feel intense frustration, overwhelm, or pressure that just interrupts their natural learning flow. So we need to meet children where their brains are at, not where we wish they were. So that's why play is very powerful, and that's why we really need to support our child's education through play, because play is how children learn the best, and it's how they learn to explore, test ideas, build their understandings. And in play, there are no right or wrong answers. A stick can be a wand, a spoon, or a horse, and their imaginations can take them literally anywhere they want to go. And we want our children to have that kind of creative thinking, because that helps them down the track to be storytellers. And this is really where that early literacy begins to kind of take shape. But when we bring in structured lessons towards literacy too early and too soon, and when we start to focus on the correct letters and correct sounds and neat handwriting, we risk shifting that natural curiosity into performance. And unlike play, reading and writing does come with rules, right? There are right and wrong answers. And if children are not ready to learn literacy in that formulated way, they may start to think that this is too hard and it's not for them, and they will feel like failures. And that's really heartbreaking to think, that children start from a really young age to internalize that they are right or wrong, when really in early childhood, play is all about exploring the grey areas and taking their learning wherever they'd like to be. And I've worked with children that have started to say things like, I'm wrong, I'm always wrong, because that is the message that they're seeing. And this disposition that they take into their learning, it's like a seed of doubt that eventually grows. So when we work with children to develop literacy, we need to understand the layers in which how we can best support them here. So instead, we really want to start to introduce literacy in a way that's respectful of where the child's at. So playing and working with their development. So this can look like storytelling, drawing, retelling events, asking questions, noticing print in the environment, not sit down, as you've mentioned, worksheets and flashcards, etc., which you do see in ECE in New Zealand, but it's not best practice. As children get older, from about 2 to 5, we do start to see signs of children becoming really interested in literacy often. And this is called emergent literacy. They start to recognize letters, noticing logos, playing with sounds. They often will pretend to write. And these are beautiful signals that literacy is coming together, that their awareness of literacy is coming together. And we also need to ground all of these interactions with really rich oral language in our everyday interactions with children. So instead of focusing on how soon a child should or could read, I want to turn the lens into looking at how can we focus on how we're supporting our children in those early years to build that really solid foundation, and also building it slowly. We don't need to rush these layers, because each child is really different. Each child has a different personality and temperament and interest. And so we just do need to be really responsive for where the child is at, because we don't want to be building our children's house of literacy, so to speak, with cracked foundations, because then we're going to spout leaks, earthquake comes along, it's going to fall down. So just really looking at how we can change our lens of not rushing, and knowing that if we can support our children in all the layers, our children will be really confident and competent in their literacy skills when they're ready.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Alex. I'm just listening to it and just agreeing wholeheartedly. And with my experience being a primary school teacher with a lot of new entrants, when they come, it's just really interesting to see what they come with. And I've always said to parents, when they're asking about school readiness, I say they need to know what stop means. And if they can read or recognize their name, that's really handy, and go to the toilet on their own. They don't need to be able to read and write and do anything else. As long as they know what stop means, they can recognize their name and can go toilet on their own. We're sorted. And I've found in the older years as well, no matter what children come with, unless they end up with a learning difficulty, or they're gifted and talented, about 8 years old, everyone seems to pan out. And so, as you're saying, reading isn't paramount, writing isn't paramount. What's paramount is allowing them to have those experiences that give those foundations along the way. Talking with your child is about playing with your child. It's about letting them experience things. It's about letting them make marks on the paper and knowing that a picture holds a story, or that lines or squiggles hold meaning for writing. So it's all these things that go along the way, but we're not saying, sit down, draw me a picture and write about that. That comes later on. For now, it's about allowing them to be who they are, what they want to do. If suddenly they get to 5 and you've realized they've never sat down and held a pencil to draw a picture and write a story, fine, they'll get there. What you want to do is just give them the exposure, give them the experiences, talk to them through things. So with all this that Alex has already said, I know for me, I've been wanting to furiously take notes, but I know as you guys as parents listening along, you don't have time to sit down with a pen and paper while listening to a podcast. So I will make sure I've got all of these notes on the blog, which is playschemas.com/blog. That's play, schemas.com/blog. And I'll have all the notes from our conversation as well as links to how you can find Alex as well. So you don't feel like you need to suddenly stop and write down everything. Okay, Alex, that was a wonderful point 1. So point number 2, what would you say you'd really like to share about literacy in the early years?
Okay, so gross motor and fine motor development really matter for literacy. And sometimes this is overlooked in its importance, essentially.
Can you tell me what is gross and what is fine? Like, is it yuck motor skills?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So gross motor skills are things that we can do with our body, big physical movements. So jumping, walking, climbing. These are using your body in big ways. And then we have fine motor skills, which are things like holding a pencil, pinching, using your body in really fine ways, especially your fingers. And when we're looking at our fine motor skills, we really need this for following the words from left to right and holding those pencils. And these muscles and abilities develop over time. So quite often we see in early childhood development that it's the gross motor skills that develop first, all that big movement. So this is why we see children with their development in that first year rolling, crawling, pulling themselves up, walking. They develop their gross motor skills first, and they do need to be really competent in these areas because of how the brain develops. And we've got 2 hemispheres of the brain, the left and right, and they need to become interconnected and they need to be working together. And when we develop our fine and gross motor skills, that is when our brain starts to make beautiful connections that down the track helps. So it is for things like crawling is very, very important for learning how to read and write. And some children actually miss crawling. And I've got lots of theories about why this is. However, that's not really important right now. What is important that is if your child does skip crawling, it could be that they really struggle to read left to right or hold a pen, because actually when you spend time in crawling, you develop the arch in your hand, right, to be able to hold a pen for a long period of time. You also develop spatial awareness and depth perception. And these all go on to impact learning, formal kind of school learning down the track. There have been many times when I've had conversations with parents and I can see that there's something missing in a child's development. I can see a child's a little clumsier than the other children, or they're not jumping off the floor with 2 feet off the ground. And I'll have discussions with the parents and say, oh, how long was such and such crawling for? Oh no, he never crawled, he went straight to walking. My cue as a teacher is then to go and do lots of crawling activities with this child so that he can work towards interconnecting the left and right parts of the brain so that when he's ready for formal instruction around reading and writing, missing those gross motor skills or the fine motor skills that should have developed, but he's missed a step, for example, can be in place before he's off to school. So gross motor skills and fine motor skills really need to be firmly developed in the early years, in the first 5 years. These are really, really important and should never be overlooked.
And I completely agree with, again, everything you say there. And that's one thing that's really important is being able to sit on a chair for doing handwriting and for doing writing and for doing reading. But being able to sit, you don't learn to sit by sitting. You learn to sit by working on your gross motor. You learn to sit by doing that swinging and running and lifting heavy things outside because that builds up your core strength. Core strength, which gives you the posture and the ability to sit well. And then it's, as you're saying, the fine motors, that's actually being able to hold the pencil and grip things well to be able to do that writing. And we know that kids' hands aren't actually ready to grip small pencils in those early childhood years. It's not until they're older that their muscles and their bones in their hand actually develop to hold small things like pens and pencils. So in those years, it's big crayons, it's chalk, it's using sticks to draw in the sand, using all these everyday experiences or allowing them to be everyday experiences, build up your child's whole body to be able to do these tasks that we just take for granted.
It's like the monkey bars on playgrounds, right? These are such important experiences for children to be able to hold their weight and build their ligaments in their hands and things. Totally agree with what you've just said.
And I've just had a podcast episode on risky play. So if you're worried about your kids being on the monkey bars and falling off, I was actually chatting with Alex just before we went live recording about broken bones. That this day and age, broken bones are seen a little bit as taboo and you're wanting to protect our kids and not break things. And while we're not trying to get our kids to break bones, there is play activities that are seen as risky, and they are risky, but actually they're doing so much good for your kids. They're learning so much. Their bodies are growing and changing their learning boundaries, that it's so important. And that's actually one thing that also is really important about the gross motor skills and the fine motor skills is learning the strength they have. Quite often you'll see with little kids when they try and turn a page, they finally got it and then they rip the page. It's because they haven't been able to connect both sides of their brain yet. They don't know how much power and strength they need to use to turn that page. And same with flaps on books. Sometimes you might think, oh, they're just being naughty, pulling them all off. And they may be. But it might be that they just haven't learnt their strength yet. They haven't realized they just need a little bit of power to open it. They don't need to use forced muscles. As they're playing, they're learning how to do all these other tasks. So if you get anything from today, let your child play, let them move, give them life experiences. Okay, 2 wonderful first points. Let's go to number 3.
Okay, I am a big believer that with most of our children's development, we don't need to be spending big dollars to support their learning development. So you can simply just use everyday moments as opportunities to support literacy in the early years. Simple as that. So one of the most powerful things we can do to support early literacy is to stop thinking it as something that we have to teach, but as something that we just do with our children, that we embed it in everyday interactions with our kids. So you can start seeing it as something that just lives in everyday moments. So for example, when you're making lunch for your child, just saying, let's get the bread. Oh, here's some cheese. Here, we're going to spread the butter on the bread. We're using rich language and we're modeling it in everyday use because this is supporting your child's language development, sequencing, vocabulary, all the good things, using language in context. Children need to hear thousands of words every day to build that complex brain that we want them to have for the rest of their lives. So we have to really use rich, descriptive language. But we just do it in everyday interactions with our children. The serve and return conversations that we have with children. How has your day been? What are you playing? Oh, I'm playing with the Lego. I'm building a tower. Oh, can you tell me about your tower? Big and you're going to build it. We're having these back and forth conversations with our children. So they learn the fundamentals of language. They learn how to use language in context, and it just becomes a natural part of their lives. Many children are actually not having serve and return conversations with adults in their lives. They're not having that one-to-one interaction. And honestly, this serve and return is one of the best things you can do to support your child's literacy, is having one-to-one conversations. So on your walk with your child, you can stop and notice what is around you. Oh, there's birds on the trees. Oh, the sun is shining today. And ask, what can you see? They're just simple things that we can do to embed language in just everyday moments. Maybe it's you're changing a nappy and you're slowing down and you're describing every action that you are taking and just allowing the child to process and understand. So everyday moments and embedding a rich contextual language is very, very important here.
And I think for Alex and myself, we've both come from teaching education backgrounds and something called think aloud. So you're just thinking out loud is very normal, very natural. But for a lot of people, it's really weird, especially if you've got a little baby who doesn't respond to you and you're talking through everything and you're like, I just sound like a crazy person. I'm just talking to myself. Be assured you are not talking to yourself, that the world is taken in everything they hear. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And this is where all storytelling comes out, because they're used to you being able to tell things. And so they know that words and intonations of your voice has meaning. And the more you do it, the easier it will become. So if you do want any support with this, reach out to Alex or myself. We'll help you and support you and encourage you to do more of these thinking out loud, serve and return conversation, because it is so important in your play. Independent play, as I've just done an episode on, is really important. But it is so important to be able to have time to play with your kids, time to do everyday tasks with your kids. We are not rushing and getting frustrated, trying just to get it through. We're having a really limited time because your life is so busy, because lives are busy, but our kids are so worth it. And we want you to be able to delight in your kids and find joy through these activities and through talking with your kids and knowing that everything you're doing is laying down foundations for their future learning in a place that's right for them right now.
A point on that is, in my house, I'm the talker. I talk constantly, and my husband is more introverted. And when we've had our children, I had to really encourage him to talk aloud, and he found it really awkward at first. He's not a big talker. And it's one of those things that practice makes proficient. And at first, when you're trying something new, it always feels real clunky and robotic. And the more you do it and the more you just become proficient at it, the more natural it becomes. And so just keep at it, because it is so powerful for your child's development.
And I would say the same with my husband and myself as well. I always remember, especially with our first, he would just go up and get the cloth and wipe the kid's face at the end. And so I'd say when he was walking up, oh, look, Dad's walking up the cloth. He's about to wipe your face, because if we leave the food on your face, it might get a little bit sore later. And he'd look at me and kind of laugh. And slowly he started remembering to do it himself. Just coming and slapping a cloth on the face does take learning, and repetition is key. And being a bit silly in it, having a bit of fun in it, so goes astray.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's your next point?
Okay, so play with words and sounds. So playing with language like silly sounds, rhymes is a huge, huge component of literacy development. It's how children develop their awareness that different letters make different sounds, right? So they are aware that there's just so many different patterns and combinations of sounds in our language. So basically, you can just be really silly with the songs that you sing. Like I had a song with my kids when they were little babies, which I'm very embarrassed, and I'm not going to sing it on live podcast. But it was basically a whole bunch of gibberish consonant sounds, and they used to love it. And I still every so often sing it to them. And songs like Ram Sam Sam and Gully 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 Ram Sam Sam. It's just a whole bunch of sounds that children can enjoy and understand that different sounds can be fun. So that you can do different rhymes like Humpty Dumpty, you name it. There's tons of different rhymes out there that you can use. And so just get silly with the different sounds that are out there, make it fun, and just go for it. Don't be embarrassed. Kids love it. Love the connection of just playing with words and sounds.
I love it. I'm going to put a challenge out to everyone now. I think you should. One thing I've really found and really love doing is I love singing with my kids. We're making up songs all the time. But some days just feel a little bit flat. And I've realized ChatGPT is my best friend in this chat. Because what you can do is you can put into ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, can you write a song in the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star that is really silly? It involves diggers and tractors and the sound shh, and has Seth as the main character. Anything like that. The world's your oyster. And then ChatGPT will put out songs for you. And so sometimes you can think of silly things on the spot, but now we've got this AI technology that you can do things like that. So of course, only put in as much as you're comfortable with. But have a go. It can be lots of fun. And especially I've done it sometimes with my 4-year-old, or we've done it together and seen what it's done with different stories and songs. I just remember to save them though, because then 3 weeks later, he'll be like, Mum, can you sing me the song? And I'm like, I actually don't know. And he's like, but you sang it. And I'm like, I know I did, but I cannot remember. And then he'll try to remember some of it for me, but just doesn't work. So just a little tip. Okay, so what's your 5th tip?
Okay, so offer opportunities for art experiences. If your child goes to early childhood education, it is likely that every day they're having opportunities to get messy and explore art. And if you're at home, there's lots of really affordable and easy kind of art experiences that you can offer to your child. But art is a really huge part of early literacy development. So when children draw, paint, scribble, and just create, they're learning that marks make meaning. They can make symbols to express ideas. So quite often you'll see children drawing as they get older, 3 and 4, often they are drawing pictures that you can decipher. And there'll be a whole lot of reasoning around why they have drawn and created. And they'll be able to tell you the story, or this is my cat climbing up a tree and there's a marshmallow in the sky. And that they'll be able to really express and communicate their ideas. So offering art experiences isn't just a child's creative thinking and storytelling, but it's about their understanding the written word is a symbol and we can make sense out of it. And as we've mentioned before, art activities are really important for that fine motor skill development. So holding a paintbrush or even just painting with the fingers. I know in early childhood education, we do a lot of messy play activities, and this is all part of helping our children to develop that literacy skills. And I know it probably doesn't seem like it when your children come home covered in messy play, their clothes are all messy. They're learning so much in these experiences. There's lots of things that you can do with young children, young babies. It might be water play, finger painting. Toddlers, it can be like chalk drawing outside. There's just tons of many, many different ways, but art activities are very important for our little ones.
Which is so good. And one extra of experts with that is for the serve and return conversation. Always ask or say, can you tell me about what you've done? Can you tell me about your picture? Because if you go, that's a really great tiger, and they look at you and they say, no, that's a crab, suddenly you've kind of lost their trust and it's kind of hard to keep going. So when they're used to using that, can you tell me about it? It's part of storytelling. It's part of the early literacy. But also you save a little bit of face by not guessing at something that it clearly isn't to your child. I've definitely done that by mistake more than once when they've been in a real phase of tigers or something like that. And so I've thought it's another tiger. And then they're like, no, it's not that. And you're like, oops, sorry. So asking them to tell you about it, that gets their literacy going, as well as them being able to tell you what it actually is. Okay, so you've shared your top 5 tips and there's been so much rich information that you've shared with it. If there was one thing that you wanted everyone to take away from this, what would that one thing be?
Read aloud every day with your children. This is just so important. And this is probably the most well-known tip for supporting literacy. But it is worth saying again, because reading aloud to your child every day, even just for a few minutes, even if it's just the same book that you read on rotation every single day, makes a huge difference. And that's not just about literacy, it's about building connection and attention, empathy, imagination. I think sometimes we can worry that we're not reading books properly to our children. I know there's been times I'm like, oh, what's the best way to read books? And I can overanalyze it as parents. But really, it's about sharing with your child the experience of literacy, of reading, that it's fun, that it's exciting. And every page you turn, there's a new adventure. And your world is your oyster with stories. And so just the importance of reading aloud to your child every day is just so important. And it's really accessible. And most of our communities will have libraries that make that really affordable. Our local library, for example, has a beautiful range of infant board books. And, because it can get quite costly to be buying books, but you don't need to. And as children grow up, their books become more complicated. And infant books are often is a picture and a couple of words. And then our toddler books get a little bit more complex. And goes with the development of where the child is at. And so when you're reading these stories to your child, describe the pictures. Ask them, what can you see what can you see? Oh, can you see a purple bird in the tree? There it is. We want to really help our children make meaning, but reading aloud is a beautiful thing. It's beautiful for their literacy development, but it's also beautiful just that quality time, one-to-one with your child, which in an often busy life can just slow us all down just for a moment. They love it, and we should love it for them too.
Oh, exactly. And I think 2 points out of what you've just said I really want to reiterate is the repetition is really important. As parents, we may think we've read the same book for 12 days in a row and I'm just over it. But actually, for your children, it's learning about the rhythm and the rhyme and the making meaning and having favorites. The same as with play schemas. Repetition is really important. So sometimes you just got to kind of take off that coat of this is really annoying and just engage with it with your child. And also, what Alex was saying about the pictures is quite often I have kids come to school and as 5, I say, okay, let's read this book together. And they go, I can't read. And so that's something I've been instilled in them already. But one thing I really say is we don't have to just read words. We read pictures. And so as Alex was saying, you look at the pictures, you describe the pictures. And especially if you've got those little board books that say car, next page, truck, next page, tractor. And you're like, this is just, what is this? That's when you're like, oh, look, there's a car. Oh, I can see a wheel. The wheel is black and it goes round and round and round. Oh, there's a cow driving the car. It's quite often you've got animals driving cars in the forth. Oh, a cow goes moo. So you're talking about this picture. There might be one word, but there's so much language you can put in around it. And so the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So Alex, you've shared so much goodness today. I'm sure people will want to connect with you, either to find out more about what you do or just to get a wonderful, silly song. So if they're to connect with you and find you, where would they find you?
So I'm on all the social platforms and you can find me at first.5.years. And you can also catch me on my website, which is first5years.co.nz.
Fantastic. And if people are wanting to connect with you more deeply, what do you offer?
So I run a Circle of Security Parenting online and I do termly intakes of that. So that's a group program, but I also do offer that in a private one-to-one setting for those that would prefer not to do it in a group setting. I also run the Circle of Security Classroom Approach, which is an exceptional program for all early years teachers and even new entrance teachers. I also offer holistic sleep coaching. I create professional development for early learning centres that want particular support in the area. And I also do motherhood mindset coaching. So I offer a range of different services. So if any of those speak to you, do feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And as I've said before, if you do want to get any of these notes or if you're thinking, oh, what was that again? Head over to playschemas.com/blog and all the information will be there. Thank you so much for sharing all your expertise today. I've absolutely loved talking literacy with you. If anyone has been listening and you've heard both of our passion towards it, we know just how important it is to have fun with your children in these early years and how it develops their literacy and all of their learning. It's all these foundations through play. So again, thank you very much. And everyone remember, today is a great day to play.